How is it going, YouTube? Most Sports Network here today, and we're going to talk more NFL draft. The draft has been like a month away from now, but we still got four more draft classes left to talk about, and we're going to do the AFC East today. I have the rest of the slides and grades all written and done, so we should be able to bust out a video every day or for the next 4 days to get them all done. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. But we're going to start with the AFC East here today, and we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills, talking about them. So I really like what the Bills did here. I have a couple critiques, but nothing. I still like what they did here a lot. So first of all, first round pick isn't there. Traded for Stephon Diggs. I think he is well worth the first round pick, despite what the Texans think DeAndre Hopkins is worth. I think that was a solid first round pick. I think the Bills had pick 22, and the fact that I don't think they would get a receiver better than Diggs at pick 22. So solid trade there. I'm not going to factor that into the draft grades, but that's just a thing to recognize. I love the AJ Epinesa pick at pick 54 in the second round. Epinesa, first round grade on him, had him going in the late first round of my mock, and he goes in the late second to the Buffalo Bills. So good on them for getting a value player like Epinesa. Once I think Trent Murphy, he's going to be behind this year, but once he retires, he will be a starter in Buffalo. And then you get Zach Moss in the second round, or in the third round rather. He could potentially beat out Singletary for the starting job. I really liked Moss out of Utah, and at the very least, they're going to have a really good 1-2 punch back by committee there in Buffalo. I'm going to do fantasy videos later on this year, but I think Moss could be a bit of a fantasy sleeper. Singletary paired with Frank Gore last year. I think Singletary can be the Frank Gore to Zach Moss, if that makes any sense. But in the third round, pretty solid value for Zach Moss. He was my fifth best running back in the draft. Then you get Gabe Davis in the fourth round out of UCF. They could use a wide receiver just depth in Buffalo. Adding Stephon Diggs definitely helps, and the core wasn't horrible last year, but Gabe Davis and also Isaiah Hodgins in the sixth round, I think both of them will make the team, both solid additions. Then you get Jake Fromm. He's going to be a backup to Josh Allen in the fifth round. Jake Fromm, I think, stealing the fifth round, good on them for that. And then Tyler Bass, the kicker out of Georgia Southern. Stephen Hauschka still on the team, but Bass is probably going to replace him sooner rather than later. Dane Jackson, the corner out of Pitt, is just going to play on special teams. So what do I think of this draft? I am going to give it a grade of a B+. And the only reason it's not an A or an A- is because I need you to add an instant starter to the team. Every single team I've given an A, even an A- to at this point, has added a starter in some capacity. And I don't think Epinesa, because the Bills have a solid defensive line right now, edge is going to be a need for them. But right now, defensive line is pretty good for the Bills, so Epinesa is not going to start. Moss, could he start? Potentially, but since this whole pandemic is going on, Devin Singletary will probably be the day one starter at running back. And then the rest of these players, besides maybe Tyler Bass, but I'm not going to give you a benefit for drafting a starting kicker. If you draft a kicker, he better start. So B+ for the Bills, just for the fact that they didn't really add any new starters. But down the line, I think this draft could pan out very well for them, especially if one of those receivers, I like both of them. I like Hodgins in the sixth more of a pick than Davis in the fourth. But overall, I think this draft has the potential to pan out. I'm going to give it a B+ right now because I don't see any of these players starting out of the box, besides the first two who have potential, but since training camp's probably going to get cut short, they probably won't get the chance this year. Then we're going to go on to the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to start off with Tua Tagovailoa. This pick was the obvious pick here at 5. I have no issues with it. I think they did exactly what they needed to. Drew Brees sort of vibes from Tua. It'll take him a while to get to the level Drew Brees was, but I think that's his ceiling is Drew Brees. And if they can get a Drew Brees with potentially more athleticism, that's well worth the fifth overall pick. Then we flip to Austin Jackson. On draft night, I didn't really love this pick, but looking at the Dolphins as a whole, you don't want to draft for need. But their offensive line, especially with a new quarterback, an injury-prone new quarterback at that, is so bad. It's probably the worst in the league. You have to go offensive line. And I thought Josh Jones would have been a better pick, but Austin Jackson was probably the second best tackle, pure tackle available there, and you need to address that. So I don't mind the pick. I'm not gonna hit it as hard as I did on draft night just because the need is so big. And then Noah Igbenogany. I trashed this pick too on draft night because I don't know why they took a corner because their secondary is their strongest spot. But you want to keep building on that strength, and sure. And I think looking at the depth of corner on their team, I think Igbenogany, he can definitely become the starting slot with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. And if Xavier Howard leaves soon, Igbenogany, learning with those guys as a very raw corner, could eventually become just a nice pairing with one of them. I think Howard, there's a chance he leaves. But Igbenogany and Byron Jones is still a nasty duo. So I still think it was a little early for him. Guys like Gladney, Christian Fulton, Jalen Johnson, three guys I liked more. Oh, also Damon Arnett was also there. So four guys I liked. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Damon Arnett was long gone. I don't know why I said that. I was thinking about 18th pick. So my bad on that. Ignore I said that. But three guys were available who all went. Gladney went the next pick. The other two guys went in the second round, who I liked better than Igbenogany. But that's not necessarily that big a deal. They're going to get a starting slot corner out of this, so I have to give them some credit. Then you get Robert Hunt. He's probably going to have to start at right tackle. He's more of a guard, but I think the fact that you get another starter, a fourth starter in the second round, is a solid selection. Whether he starts at guard or tackle is up to the Dolphins. I've seen both looking at different places. Then you get Raekwon Davis. I don't see interior defensive line as a huge need for the Dolphins, but Raekwon Davis and the second is still a solid pick. Those nose tackles out of Alabama are just interior defensive linemen are always bodies you want to add, along with like Christian Wilkins. I think they still have Devon Godchaux. They may or may not. I'm going to look that up real quick. He still is. So those two guys are solid, but I think Raekwon, especially Godchaux, he can probably pass him up at some point. Brandon Jones, a little early for my taste. I didn't have a third-round grade on him, but more safety help is always appreciated. They have Bobby McCain starting at free right now, and that's probably what Jones would play. I think he can play strong, but he's just going to be a depth special teamer year one, so a little early for my taste. Solomon Kinley, he has potential to start at guard for this team in the fourth round, so you love that. The Georgia offensive line's ridiculous this year, just draft-wise. In the first four rounds, I think they had three of their players selected, so that's a solid pick. And Jason Strowbridge out of North Carolina, he'll be a defensive lineman. He's nothing too special, just a body they're going to throw out there. Really like Curtis Weaver out of Boise State. Little undersized, but had great production at Boise. He's fast. I think he can get the job done. Long snapper in the sixth round. I mean, in the sixth round, you're just throwing darts. And if you need a long snapper, he's going to make the roster. And so if you get a roster play in the sixth round, sure, that's cool. But sixth round, I wouldn't really quite love that pick. And Malcolm Perry out of Navy. He's an underrated player in this draft. He played quarterback for Navy. Last season, he had over 2,000 rushing yards and over 20 touchdowns as the quarterback. On top of throwing, Navy doesn't throw too much, but 2,000 rushing yards is very impressive regardless. He's listed as a wide receiver. He can just be a gadget player for Miami, and in the seventh round, a gadget player like that's what you're looking for. I'm gonna grade this draft an A minus, and it's just for like a couple value situations, and like to get the A plus, there got to be like some either really good value picks or picks I don't have a problem with at all. And I think Austin Jackson, Igbenogany, while they were appropriate, like Jackson, you needed a tackle. I think there was a couple tackle, or at least one tackle for sure I could have taken ahead of him. And then Igbenogany, more corners I think you could have taken before him. But I'm not going to dog it too hard, especially considering you get your franchise quarterback, you get two offensive linemen on what, two, maybe three offensive linemen on what could be the worst offensive line in the league. And then you get depth across the board with a struggling team like Miami. Depth is very important. So besides a couple, I think, value issues, I think an A minus is very appropriate for the Dolphins. And I like what they did overall. So we're going to go on to the New England Patriots now, where I kind of like what they did as well. I'm not as high on it as the other two, but I think this draft can pan out to be one of the better ones. It seems like a very Patriot draft, especially with the first three picks. They trade down. They select Kyle Duggar in the second round. A little early for him, sure, but I think he can be a starter someday. Patrick Chung replacement. I liked him. Solid pick. Then Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings out of Michigan and Alabama, respectively. They could potentially be starting edge rushers for the Patriots someday. I think there are potential three starters in these first three rounds. And then it falls off a little bit for me after that. I don't love back-to-back tight ends, especially since I think Asiasi and Dalton Keene in the third round is a little early for both of them. But I guess since you have those picks and you need tight end, because I think Matt Lacoste is your only other like solid tight end. So you're just going to throw darts at that one and pretty much hope one of them pans out. You draft a kicker, and that doesn't really make much sense to me. You could have there's several wide receivers at that point, and the Patriots clearly need those. It's Edelman and a bunch of, I guess they added Marquise Lee, who knows if he's going to be on the field. And then, of course, they have N'Keal Harry, who hopefully he pans out. He just did not have a good rookie year. And then I think Jake Fromm was even still available with that pick. Let me hop back. Yeah, 167 was Jake Fromm. 159 was the kicker out of Marshall. So you could have even gotten a solid backup or potential starter for the future. I think Fromm has better upside than Jarrett Stidham, but that's just me, how I watched both of them in college. So I don't like the kicker pick at all. Michael Onwenu, a guy to look out for. I think he has the potential. With the Patriots, they get these late round offensive linemen they end up starting. I think Onwenu is a potential guy for that to happen. The last three picks are just throw a dart and hope they stick. They're going to be special teamers if they even make the roster. So the Patriots, same kind of philosophy, grading it that I did with the Bills. I'm going to throw it a B, however, because I think the starters or the players they drafted aren't going to have as immediate of an impact as the Bills guys. But I don't hate the draft because they have 3, probably 4, even 5 of Onwenu pans out, potential starters for the future. Personally, I would have liked them to address the offense a little more than just 2 tight ends and some offensive line help. But I think you can never complain if you have 3 solid depth / future starters on the defense. So nothing wowing me, but I'm going to give the Patriots a B overall. And then finally, we're going to get into the New York Jets. I really liked the Jets draft. Their first 3 picks were among my favorites of a team's first 3 picks in the draft. Mekhi Becton, a little the only thing I didn't love is that I was more of a Tristan Wirfs guy over Mekhi Becton, but I think Becton has the potential to end up being better than Wirfs when it's all said and done. And I think both players probably ended up in positions that could suit them well. I think Becton in a team that's growing like the Jets and Becton growing with them, I think works really well. He's a freak of nature, and I can't really fault the pick at 11. The only way I would have been upset with a Becton pick was like at 4 to the Giants, but that didn't happen. So 11, I think, is good value for him. Then you get Denzel Mims. I got a first round grade on. He falls almost to the end of the second, almost to the third round. Kind of DK Metcalf esque, and they're kind of similar players in my eyes. Uh, deep deep down the field, athletic freaks. And I think the Jets, he's going to start for them, so good for them. And then Ashton Davis, whether he's a Marcus May replacement or just a third safety on the roster, I think Davis was a second round value, maybe first round upside, and they get to him in the third round. So solid there. And then the middle rounds kind of hurt a little bit. Jabari Zuniga, I don't despise the pick. I think it was a little early. He's just going to be a body there, and you need as many defensive line bodies as you can to rotate around. So I don't despise the pick. And then LaMichael Pirine, same deal. Le'Veon Bell, he has shown in his career that he cannot stay on the field. He's only had a couple seasons where he stayed on the field the whole time, so bodies at running back are always good. Fourth round pick is solid. I don't get the James Morgan pick at all. And I don't much care for it, especially since the Jets just signed Joe Flacco. So you're kind of just throwing away a fourth round pick at that point. And there were several players in the fourth that I think you could have gotten over James Morgan. I think you could go down to like a sixth round pick and get your third string quarterback. And maybe they didn't know they were going to sign Flacco during the draft, but they knew that veteran backup was potentially there, and so the James Morgan pick is a bit of a head scratcher. Then we go to Cameron Clark. I tweeted out he's the first player in the draft that I didn't actually know or watch out of UNC Charlotte. After watching him, he's a developmental tackle, and that's usually what you get coming out of Charlotte or places similar to Charlotte. He'll be a swing tackle. He'll probably, if not, he'll be a backup at some position for the Jets if he makes the roster in the fifth round or fourth round. Then Bryce Hall in the fifth round, I love. He was like late second to third round grade for me out of Virginia. He could be a potential starting corner for the Jets. So I really like that pick along with those first three picks. And then you get a punter in the sixth round. I personally wouldn't draft a punter ever, but they took one in the sixth. So I guess if he's going to be your franchise punter, good for you. But I don't love that. Overall, I'm going to give the Jets an A. They got two immediate starters, and then they got two guys who I think have upside to start / will start at some point, especially considering what they do with Marcus May or the rest of the secondary. I just love the value for Mims and Davis, and that's what really pushes this draft up to an A for me, as well as fixing the offensive line for Darnold, who was running for his life. So let's go ahead and recap now. Bills really like the Epinesa and Moss pick. The rest of the draft was decent value, especially the Fromm pick. And there'll be decent depth for a Bills team that should be the favorite in my eyes to win the AFC East. Will they? Who knows? But it's nice to have a team other than the Patriots be the favorite. We're going to go to the Dolphins now. Really liked that they got a lot of starters, and so you can't really fault them too much, although the value for certain picks wasn't necessarily appropriate, and some of the fits are kind of weird where these certain players are going to play. But you can't fault them, especially since they got their franchise quarterback and several starters for the future. So A- for the Dolphins. Then we get to the Patriots. No one on this page is going to start right away. I think 3 to 4 of these guys have the upside to start. I think some of these guys are Patriots. They're New England Patriots in that Belichick defense are very solid fits. So I'm going to give it a B overall since none of these players are going to make immediate impacts, especially there's no one on the offense, which is going to be hurting this year in my eyes to make immediate impacts. So B for the Patriots. And then finally we get to the New York Jets, where I give them an A. Becton, Mims, Davis, probably some of the best first 3 rounds in this NFL draft. Then you get Bryce Hall in the 5th, which is a really good steal, and they get decent depth everywhere else. I don't like the James Morgan or Braden Mann pick, but that's just me. So A for the Jets. So that is going to be all from me today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you disagree with the video in any way, make sure you leave a comment below. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. I have been Mo Sports Network, and I will see you guys tomorrow with the NFC East.